Hello everyone and welcome back to Weston the Historian. Today I've got my full trad goth look on so we can talk about the philosophical ideas that motivate Gothic culture. In my last two videos, we discussed the history of goth from the Germanic tribes up to the modern subculture and music sphere. So, going back to everything I said in the last two videos, what even is goth? What connects all this together? What makes everything mentioned here goth? It has been made obvious that some sort of darkness overlays all of it. The Gothic tribes brought forth the Dark Ages. Gothic architecture, while never intending to be dark, was eventually perceived to be just that. In Gothic literature, music, fashion, etc., all very explicitly and intentionally use darkness as a common theme. Of course, dark can have many connotations, so it's good to define the word itself before we go any further. In this context, to be dark is to be mysterious, gloomy, disturbing, supernatural, and even twisted. All of these elements are shared across the board, with the possible exception of the Gothic tribes, though there was still an element of darkness to them, as from the Roman perspective, the Germans were mysterious and barbaric, with ways of life, battle tactics, religious practices, etc. that were completely alien to them. However, that might be a little bit of a stretch, so we will just focus on everything from Gothic architecture to the subculture for the rest of this discussion. So, at its heart, Gothic philosophy is the ability to find beauty in that which is dark, macabre, strange, mysterious, or even painful. It is the embrace of that which most are too afraid to even approach. It seems to have notable connections to the existentialists, specifically Friedrich Nietzsche, as well as the psychoanalyst Carl Jung. According to Nietzsche, the truly exceptional life came not from repressing one's own emotions and desires, but instead from taking authority over them and using them to drive oneself to their own goals. Nietzsche called this, that person who has the ability to use their inner chaos to live well, the Übermensch or the Overman. Carl Jung similarly believed that a mentally mature person must confront and integrate their shadow, that is, simply put, the part of an individual's psyche that they bury down and hide, in order to truly become whole. Nietzsche and Jung together teach that emotions and desires are not something to fear, but something to embrace and use as a mechanism for change. The Goths also have a certain countercultural bend, which also is shared by Nietzsche. Nietzsche wrote as philosophy was not for everyone and frequently attacked modern society, stating that his words would fall on deaf ears and that only a noble few would truly understand and live out his philosophy. From his book Ecce Homo, quote, "I know my destiny. There will come a day when my name will recall the memory of something formidable, a crisis the likes of which has never been known on earth, the memory of the most profound clash of consciences, and the passing of a sentence upon all that which heretofore have been believed exhausted and hollowed. I am not a man, I am dynamite. And with it, all there is not of the founder of a religion in me. Religions are matters for the mob. I require no believers. I never address myself to the masses. My truth is terrible, for it hitherto lies have been called truth. I contradict as no one has contradicted before. When truth enters the lists against the falsehood of ages, shocks are bound to ensue, in a spell of earthquakes, followed by the transportation of hills and valleys, such as the world has never yet imagined even in its dreams. All the mighty realms of the ancient order of society are blown into space, for they are all based on falsehood. There will be wars, the likes of which have never been seen on earth before." Unquote. The German philosophers saw that which was shunned by contemporary society as venerable, and that which was promoted as perverted. Going into this, I initially assumed that Gothic culture would share a lot in common with the pessimism of Arthur Schopenhauer. According to Schopenhauer and other pessimists, life is inherently evil, and that to live well, one must deny life itself. Pessimists believe that mankind is inherently evil, but it is society that keeps us in check, and that without it we would be committing the most abhorrent of crimes. Gothic culture does have a sort of pessimism to it, but it does not seem to deny life in the way that the pessimists would. Instead, Gothic culture sees the darkness in the world and tries to find the beauty within it. Instead of rejecting what is disturbing, outlandish, and decaying, Goth embraces it fully. This should not be too surprising, as throughout Gothic literature, music, fashion, and even to a small extent, architecture, darkness, whether it manifests itself in vampires or gargoyles or depression or insanity or death, or just the color black itself, is combined with romanticism. Gothic literature and music specifically is very poetic and creative, endeavoring to explore dark topics in a way that can help the consumer appreciate its very existence. In the case of Gothic architecture, gargoyles, these frightening depictions of mythical beasts, were built into churches as a way of warding off evil spirits. Another point that shows a difference between Gothic and pessimistic philosophy is that Goth does not necessarily view dark and evil as synonymous. As I have just mentioned, Gothic cathedrals and churches use dark depictions of creatures to ward off evil spirits. Christians, especially in the Middle Ages, would not be using evil to ward off evil. There seems to be an understanding among these architects that gargoyles are frightening but not evil. This view also presents itself within the literature and music of Goth. To give a specific example, the book Frankenstein's Monster does not show the monster itself as being evil. What it does show is that its creator was evil, but the monster itself, despite his ghastly appearance, rejection by society, and shocking origins, is not evil himself. My final point on the overarching philosophy of Goth is that of religion. Within everything Gothic, there seems to be an underlying mystical element. Gothic cathedrals were built with a very explicit purpose of drawing attention to God and his kingdom. They were built to be tall and foreboding to achieve this. Gothic literature often will explore spiritual themes such as ghosts and magic and prophecies. On the surface, the Gothic subculture and its music does not have any specific religious affiliation. However, there is still a fascination with the spiritual, as it has embraced religious traditions and practices that are not common in contemporary society. In fact, the most popular song by Siouxsie and the Banshees is literally titled Spellbound, and although the lyrics are open to interpretation, its very title denotes something spiritual and magical. Not only this, but witchcraft and other spiritual practices are not entirely uncommon in the Goth community, though most Goths do not identify with these sorts of practices, with the vast majority being irreligious or following a more mainstream religion. With that being said, spirituality still has a very clear impact on the themes and cultures of Goth. So, to wrap everything up, what brings together Gothic architecture, Gothic literature, and the modern Gothic subculture is a romantic fascination with everything dark, a rejection of popular culture, and an embrace of the sides of life most are too afraid to even come face to face to. Thank you everyone for watching today's video. This concludes my Black Planet series, so if you haven't watched the other videos, you should. The links will be in the description. So, thank you all for watching, and I very much appreciate it. I hope everyone enjoyed this series. I enjoyed writing for this series. I enjoyed doing these videos. I enjoyed researching for this, so I hope you liked it just as much as I did. I hope you like this video. I hope you share it, and I hope you subscribe. Before I completely close out, one thing which I would like to clarify about this is that this philosophy of Goth, which I've been talking about, is not necessarily something everyone who would consider themselves Goth follows. Like me personally, I would not follow, Nietzsche's kind of, irreligious stances. I personally just cannot agree with that. But there are definitely some people who do, but one thing about this sort of philosophy of Goth, which I have been talking about, is that this is what seems to influence the literature and the architecture and the music and everything else, but it doesn't seem to be something that everyone who is Goth or everyone who listens to the music or reads the books, that, it's not something they all follow. Everyone within the community follows whatever they want to follow. The thing that makes why a person would call themselves Goth is if they listen to the music. And of course, this philosophy which I have talked about connects these ideas, the ideas of the music and the fashion and the architecture and the literature, but it's not something that connects these individual people. So I just wanted to clarify that before I closed out. So now, with all of that being said, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and share it maybe if you would like to. You don't have to, of course, but thank you for watching, and goodbye.